Welcome back. Well, it's a big day of the year for the Yanks, and I mean that affectionately. Their National Day, Independence Day, which they take seriously. Here to talk about all things American, I'm joined by Dr. Nicole Hemmer of the United States Study Centre here at Sydney University. Hello, welcome to the show and happy Independence Day.
Thank you.
Now, you're an expert in media, and I mean, of course, you're American. What's the mood like at the moment? You've got the election, the economy stuffed. I mean, do they just, when I live there, they still take the day off, fireworks and whatever, or how's it changed? What's this year like?
Right, they still
even though you're here, right. I know you must talk to people.
I do. They still take the day off.
Yeah.
They still have the fireworks and the barbecue and all of that. But
well, a lot of them have got more than a day off.
Right. But at the moment, with the election, with the economy, with the healthcare ruling, there is, a sense that there's a struggle going on about what the Declaration of Independence means, what the nation means, where it's going. So I think it has a bit more of a meaning as people sit down and think about.
Well, yeah, because we've had all that Tea Party nonsense, which is now coming to a head at the election. Without going too much into the election, because I'm talking about that next week with somebody from your area, but in general, your specialty is media. We're having a complete restructuring of our media here. You've studied the fact that the biggest trend, I guess, you're seeing is the rise of right-wing media there, right? Right.
Right-wing media has become a force that's reshaped all of American media, and we're seeing it especially in this election season, the way that it not only shapes the stories that we hear on all other news outlets, but the way that it affects the way we understand politics and current events.
But it's ironic because the rise of right-wing media is actually being blamed for some of the problems the Republicans had because it's moved the Republicans so far to the right, hasn't it? So
absolutely. No, it definitely is one of those, it's a mixed bag, right? It helps the base feel more empowered, but it also means that politicians have less wiggle room.
I guess I was interested because we've got a big story today. There's, as you know, the Fairfax issue. The government's talking about a public interest test for people, and a number of media people here have signed a letter saying don't interfere. Well, of course, America is the bastion of no government interference. You don't even have a publicly funded broadcaster, good on you. But you do have a protection in the Constitution for media, don't you?
Absolutely.
A respect for it we don't have.
Right. We have a protection for freedom of speech, and that extends to our media. It means that the government mostly has to take a hands-on approach. They can get a little involved in broadcasting, but in most things, the government has to take a real step back, and so there are many fewer sorts of conflicts between government regulators and the media than in Australia. So
yeah, and really you can honestly say you're an independent. Your media is independent, and I guess that comes back to what Independence Day is. That Constitution is the key, isn't it?
Absolutely, the Constitution is the key, and the ideas enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, those ideas of freedom and government by consent, those ideas really shape the way that Americans view what freedom means for them.
And it's interesting that you're moving to the right in your media at a time we've got a big debate because somebody from the right is buying into one of our groups. Do you find that a bizarre argument here? Are we bucking a trend?
I think that you're still going. I think you will see a trend similar to what's happened in the United States. It's probably not going to happen on the same scale, but right-wing media is picking up a little bit of steam here.
So if you're saying from the US example, it's not necessarily the same in the UK and we don't necessarily follow, but are you saying in the US example it would not be so unusual for a Gina Rinehart to be buying in, or it wouldn't attract the same kind of though I'm sure if a Gina Rinehart bought in the New York Times, you'd probably have a bit of a backlash.
You would have people talking, right? But Rupert Murdoch bought the Wall Street Journal, and there was a bit of a backlash. There was a bit of a question whether his politics would influence the politics of the newspaper. But ultimately, there's not a lot anyone can do about it.
So, what would you say is I asked the mood, but just the theme this year? I mean, you've got the election, but it is another couple of months off, and while that dominates, again, Americans tend to take their national holiday, we use it as just a barbecue, while you do that too. There's a bit of a reflection on what they've got and what they're doing, where they're going, isn't there?
I think so. Yeah, I think there is a time of reflection about what people are doing, what direction the country is going, sort of bucking against the idea of America in decline. It's a time to celebrate.
But you're not like in England, are you? You're not depressed by all this, even though the economy's uncertain. They do tend to put on a brave face, don't they?
Yeah, Americans tend to be pretty optimistic.
So you'd say it's more optimistic at the moment. This isn't the worst Independence Day they've had.
This isn't the worst Independence Day we've had. It's not the best, but it's not the worst.
Oh, good. Well, okay. Well, thank you. And as I say, I hope you go out and have a hot dog now.
Will do.
Thank you. Dr. Nicole Hemmer from the United States Study Centre here at Sydney University.